got it.
Right, we're now live, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody, and I'd like to wish you all a happy new year. I hope you've had a good Christmas and New Year, and welcome back, Ian, after your short misdemeanor. But you're looking rather well for it, and so welcome back.
Thank you.
A roll call of councillors. I've got Councillor Gow, Councillor Horsley, Councillor Willis, Councillor Tucker, and myself. Have we any apologies?
Yeah, I've got apologies from Councillor Wildey and Councillor Alison Healy.
Thank you. So moving on then, we are live on YouTube, live streaming, and just to remind members to mute and indicate either by raising your hand physically or by on the Zoom raise hand, that leads us on to declarations. Any declarations that any member of the council and officers have in respect of the agenda items listed below. Members to declare interests should identify the type of interest being declared. None, and B, 3B, to note dispensations given to any member of the council and officer in respect of the agenda items listed below. None. So 4, to approve the minutes of Planning, Environment and Service Committee held on Tuesday the 30th of November 2021. I've got in brackets to follow. We have got them, I believe. So if you all agree with them, yeah, in agreement, right? Thank you.
I'll provide a copy of these for you to sign, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Just in case anyone's watching is aware, because this meeting's taking place before full council, the committee approves its minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Delegated responses, to note the delegated responses submitted by the acting town clerk in consultation with myself, and I think you've all got them copies and agreed. Yeah. So that leads us straight into then item 6, planning applications, environment applications. And I've experienced, and I think the majority of you have, technical problems with what appears to be East Riding's portal when you're trying to get onto them, although I did access them over the weekend, but again it was very hit and miss. So we'll go on to the first one, which is Beverley Railway Station, Railway Square, Beverley, and its alterations, strengthening and refurbishment of the footbridge, including removal of the wooden canopy. Yeah, I've got you, Matt. Now we are only a consultation in this, and we're grateful that Network Rail have put in the application to East Riding, and East Riding have shared it with us. The suggested response that we've got is that Beverley Town Council views the removal of the canopy as most significant aesthetic change. It understands the reason for this as detailed within the planning application documents, especially in terms of sustainability and maintenance. And therefore Beverley Town Council welcomes this much needed refurbishment and supports the application. If I could turn to Matt, because you did indicate, Matt,
Yeah,
I don't know if I don't know if you've got any more information.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just to reiterate for councillors, anyone listening, that or viewing, in the application of the meeting, the suggested response is what I've suggested as clerk. However, councillors are happy to can change them in any way if they disagree with this and want other comments. I tried to, as we were saying earlier, I tried to look on the application, see through any comments today. Whilst we couldn't get on it, I do know that the Civic Society has expressed concerns regarding the removal of the canopy, viewing it as a unique feature of the station. So that might be something to consider. I was hoping to be able to show you any comments via Zoom, but unfortunately the system at East Riding means I can't. But that's the only other update I really know on that one.
Thank you. Ian and then David.
It was the subject of considerable furore on the Beverley East Riding Facebook group, with over 100 incendiary comments, to be honest. I haven't been able to access the plans at any point. Matt, I assume you have seen them at some point. So are they taking the lid off it, basically? But didn't they apply to Historic England for funding for this?
They're removing the canopy across it, and the projection of what the bridge will look like itself will be blue metal, more akin to what's at Cottingham Station, but tight to the building rather than separate from it.
Yeah. David.
Yes. Oh grief! What the hell's going on? Sorry, for some reason things disappeared when you said David. Anyway, I'd like to change just marginally what we're saying to say that we view the removal of the canopy with regret, but that we welcome the scheme overall.
Yeah. As I said to you, I did manage to get on, and when I think it was first built in 1884, this bridge, Matt will correct me if I'm wrong, and of course in them days there was no wooden structure, it was just the typical Victoriana style bridge, and when you look at it, you've got the beautiful castings in the metalwork, and for some unknown reason, not too long after, it was decided to cover it in, I have an open mind about this. I'm all for restoration as was, and I do think that when you look at the plans, it looks far better, the design and everything, because it's not altering, they're just upgrading and refurbishing basically what they've got. However, there won't be a cover over it. Now, people can say, well, that's a good thing and it can be a bad thing, but I think looking at what the investment that Network Rail are doing along the line, I think this is an example that the line is safe for some many years to come. They've just spent millions of pounds up at Bridlington and not finished yet. And this, and I do believe they're taking the footbridge away at Bridlington, which obviously has caused a lot of problems with the residents up there. I wouldn't like to think that one of the options that's in this application is to completely remove it. And I just think that that would be a retrograde step for the future.
Can I just put in, Mr. Chair, the site's live now. If anybody wants to click on it, all the images have appeared.
Right. Okay, thank you. And I just think that it'd be a retrograde step to do away with the footbridge. Rather than that happen, I would think we'd keep it, and whilst we I agree with what David and Ian has said. I think that moving forward, this is the best that to help maintain this footbridge. I've got David Tucker and then you, Ian.
Concur with what you've said, Chair. I think the issue here is that it's been around for a while. There is some suspicion that the additional weight of the timber might not be doing the metalwork a great deal of good. I mean, that seems a bit unusual to me, but so be it. As you say, the most important thing is to keep it, because that bridge is very, very heavily used, especially now with Fleming Gate. I mean, the purpose of a canopy is clearly to protect people from the weather. I mean, what I can't understand is that I've never seen anybody sheltering under there from the weather, and people just pass from one side quickly to the other. So I don't think it's got a real functionality. The fact that something's had a piece of timber over it for a number of years doesn't, to me, necessarily mean that piece of timber should stay there. So I mean, that's where I am on it.
Thank you, Ian.
Having seen the illustrations, I mean, it's true to its as it is, although it's a stripped back version. But to be honest, the 3D illustrations are it respects the traditional vision of it, and it could be worse, as you say. They're maintaining it and they're keeping the footbridge, so that has to be a positive.
It does, Ian, exactly. You know, as I say, they've done away with the footbridge up at Bridlington, and more importantly, this is a sign that the line is here to stay. And I do believe that they're going to further expand the London King's Cross train. They're going to be putting another extra one on. I know that has nothing to do with this application, but it just goes to show the amount of usage that these stations have got or are getting. Okay. So are we in agreement with, go on, Matt.
Yeah, just for councillors' information, how we can get on the system. The Civic Society raised a concern regarding it, and the Conservation Officer classes it, the change, as substantial harm due to the grade 2 listed status of the station, and with the idea that the strengthening works would help to facilitate any the councillor made a comment a few minutes ago about the wood causing damage, the weight damage to the structure, but with strengthening work, questioning some of the Conservation Office questioning whether that would strengthening would enable such a canopy. It is difficult, Mr. Chair, because of the conservation aspect of it and strong local opinion, but the councillors also have to balance that with the actual the proper factors, the material considerations with this application, and also, as other councillors said, the amount of investment that's been put into it, which is why I've already got the comments that you want to detail it as a regret that it will be removed, and we could refer to taking into consideration the comments made by the Civic Society and the Conservation Officer, that the Town Council regrets the removal, but also appreciates the reasons for it.
Yeah. Are we in agreement with that then,
Agreed.
members? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Matt. So then, item 2 on this evening's planning applications is Beverley Town Cricket and Recreation Club, Norwood Park Recreation Club, Lane, Beverley. That's just off Norwood, ironically near the not too far away from the railway line, a little bit down towards more or less opposite the fish and chip shop. But anyhow, it's a change of use of land for purchasing of motor vehicles with siting of a temporary office and building. Now, this is a retrospective planning application, yet again, and it does concern me that we've got this as a retrospective application. I don't know who's at fault here, whether it's the cricket club or the applicant who's putting the application forward, the company. But it isn't for storing of purchasing of vehicles. It'll be for storage of them as well, of vehicles. And I just see this as a blatant abuse of the planning authority and the consultees. Yeah, I got you in, and it just smacks it in the face, especially where they are going on the cricket club site, there could be a large amount of cars stored there until the car transporter arrives and removes them, and that in itself is a problem. Access up the lane, or are we going to have a car transporter parked on Norwood till he gets his cars loaded onto the vehicle and then goes away? It's just, I think, an absolute stupid area to have this. There's plenty of other areas. Yeah, I've got you, Dave. There's plenty of other areas to have this. Why couldn't it have gone down on Groville Road Industry, off Swinemore Lane Industrial Area? There's plenty of land there. I just don't get it, why this is the case. So I'll go to you, Ian, then to David, David Tucker, and then to Anne.
As I understand it, it's We Buy Any Car, isn't it? It's mentioned in the documents, the company. They have a large site on Sutton Fields, and what they're aiming to do is get a station across the country within 20 minutes of most addresses. I believe, I mean, it's not a retail car sales place. If you're selling your car to them, you'll take it there, it'll be assessed, and then it'll be moved on. Whether they then drive it to Sutton Fields, I don't know. And also, if they're selling vehicles pre-arranged, it's not an open car sales place as such. It's pre-done deals, but you're right, whether it's car transporters or whether they're shuttling people from Sutton Fields to here. And as you say, Grove Hill would be entirely appropriate. I can sympathise with the committee of the cricket club when they've seen it as a financial opportunity. But having attended an awful lot of cricket matches and functions down there, that lane can be very congested, and not very nice for the people who live there in seclusion. So, yeah, it's a shame they've gone ahead with it.
Yeah. David Tucker.
Yeah, I agree with what Ian says. I mean, I've played squash down there since the 1970s. That road is a nightmare. It's incredibly dangerous. The turning point is very, very dangerous. The more traffic that's manoeuvring around on Norwood there, the more chance there is for accident. Personally, on a planning basis, I think we should object to it. You don't know when these things start, how much bigger it's going to get. There could be more and more vehicles. It can expand it to something else. So, I mean, as an application in itself, I do not think it's appropriate for that area, bearing in mind there are other areas available which are currently empty, which would be much better employed for it. My second thought is that we've got a situation here where Beverley Town Cricket Recreation Club has done this retrospective application, which is completely against what should be done if an organisation is working properly. We have over the years given significant funding and have supported that feature as much as we can do. I think there's an issue there of where we stand in terms of this unprofessional attitude with a retrospective application, which we're getting more and more of. If nothing else, I think we might want to consider as a committee, when this happens, actually making our point known. I guess a number of people probably won't be following what's happening here, won't follow the minutes and all the rest of it. I think we might consider whether it might be appropriate for us to send these individuals, these organisations, a message, a letter with the appropriate minute, talking about how inappropriate we think it is to have retrospective planning. It may not do a great deal of good, but it may make people think twice before they do it again. Otherwise, does anybody know what we actually feel about it, rather than it being in a minute that nobody might read?
Yeah, thank you. I've got you, David. Anne first.
I agree with David Tucker. I think we should maybe send them a letter or something. And we've got to object when it's retrospective. But do you think it's retrospective because they were worried that it would be turned down because of the issues with the access, like you've said? So to make sure it wasn't turned down, they did it. And then put in the application retrospectively.
Yeah.
But it annoys me tremendously, these retrospective ones.
Yeah, we get it nearly every meeting now. There's one application, if not two, that's retrospective.
Yeah.
David Arsley.
Yes, first, just a side comment on Ian. He said he'd attended an awful lot of cricket matches. Not all of them were awful. But more seriously, the crucial factor here is how many cars, how much time, both in terms of how long the individual vehicles will be around there, but also in terms of how long this application is intended to last for, because it's quite common with applications of this kind to say that they have permission for 1 year and that it will be reviewed at the end of that year to see whether how badly it's working.
Well, I can tell you, David, what happens is that if you have a car for sale and you buy, you ring webuyanycar.com, it's a national number you call, and they make an appointment at the nearest office to where you live. I have experience of Hull. I've been there today. I've been in building where they are, and they can have up to 10 car sales people come in to sell their car. They assess it, as Ian rightly says, and then if the customer, if the seller is in agreement with what webuyanycar.com are saying, then the sale goes ahead. They buy it off them, they take the keys, they take the documents, and that's it. And the car's left there on site until the car transporter vehicle comes and takes it away. Now it can be where I am, they keep the cars till they've got 10 or 12, because that's the amount a car transporter vehicle will carry. But I have known them that come and they've picked half a dozen up. But at the end of the day, I think it was Anne that mentioned, and David Tucker, that the congestion that's down the lane, that can be down the lane, it can be horrendous. And especially in summer, when they've got the cricket on and other activities, because it's not just cricket, there's other activities. I just think that it's a danger. David Tucker.
It's just made me think when you said that, Chair, that basically I'm not entirely sure that passageway is wide enough to take a full-size transporter. If it did, it would be touching the certainly touching the hedges on either side. The impact upon local residents would be horrendous. Now, my other thought is that when you use that, when I've been using it to play sport up there, somebody coming in, driving in from Norwood, you would drive up the track, and if there was a car coming down, either they reverse or you reverse. Now, it's slightly wider on the Norwood side of the road. There is a wideish section where you could pull your car in there and two cars can get by. There is absolutely no way that you could do that if there's a transporter coming down, because the transporter has to swing out. But any car going up to the club from Norwood would actually have to reverse into the main road. So I think there's a major potential hazard in that respect.
Okay, so are we objecting to this then, and on the basis of what Councillor David Tucker has said?
Yeah.
Matt?
I'm just trying to figure out what your objections are, because if you look at the application, highways have found no issues with it. So it would be disagreeing with East Riding officers on highways. The Sports England haven't objected either. So the main objection is on highways, the issue of highways, and the additional traffic generated of vehicular access, and potential noise and disturbances as well. Could I also suggest councillors consider putting in that if it is given permission, the town council would like the East Riding to monitor the situation to ensure that the number of cars on site fit within the 6 parking spaces indicated within the application, to ensure that it is being constantly monitored.
Good idea.
Good idea.
And I also suggest we do what David said and maybe ask them to consider it being for a 1-year period in order for it to be reviewed at the end of that 1-year period.
I just don't know how the planning law that would fall, Matt. Do you?
I know from past experience in a previous job, applying for lighting for a sports facility for permanent lighting, the East Riding granted it on the basis of 6 months to a year to assess it, and then when there were no issues, agreed for it to be extended, so that we can suggest that an East Riding can put that provision in place.
Good. Are we all in agreement? Yeah.
Yes.
Very good then. So the third and final one is Samuel Lawrence Jewellers, 2-3 Cross Street, Beverley. Change of use from retail to a sui generis. Sui generis. Thank you. Sui generis. Use comprising a retail and drinking establishment. So Beverley Town Council has no objection to this application. It will ensure sustainability, use of the currently empty premises, and is suited to the area, which is predominantly retail and business. A venue of this kind will be positive addition to Beverley's hospitality offer. Are we in agreement with that recommendation? Yeah. Thank you. That's it for the application.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if some of the hands were making points or just agreeing.
Oh, go on, Ian. Sorry.
There's no mention of licensing hours on the application. Is there, Leonard Clark?
Trying to get back into the application.
I've got location plan, site plan, application form, committee, but there's no. I just don't know. I mean, I've no problem with places staying open late, but I'm mindful that there are some residences round about that.
So would you like me to add something along the lines, but however BTC is mindful that the licensing hours have not yet been approved, and this needs to be taken into consideration. The location and the lifestyles need to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, that would be good, because even
yeah.
even if it's A3 food retail or something like that, you know, they are subject to restrictions from East Riding.
Good.
No, it don't say.
No, this one is the main fabric of the building, changing the fabric of the building to facilitate what they're wanting to achieve, rather than the actual licensing details, the licensing application itself.
No. No. Okay, then. So we're in agreement with what got David?
Agreed.
I'm in agreement with that. I wanted to go retrospectively just back to the Norwood one a minute, Chair. Sorry. So let's finish this one first, shall we?
Yeah. So are we in agreement with this?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, I also mentioned change of use as well.
Yes. Yeah. David Tucker, going back to the Norwood.
Back to the Norwood recreation one. I mean, I did mention about us considering, as a matter of principle, writing to all retrospective applications, and that would be one I think which we should do as a matter of principle whenever these come up. I think we should also consider whether, if we're going to start on that process, if we're going to get East Riding Planning to get behind this a little bit more, that they could do the same. I know it's harder for us to make them do anything, but if we say this is what we are doing, it would be helpful for you to do this, because you'll be as tired of retrospectives as we are. And it's an attempt. We have little power in that many senses, but it's an attempt to stop people doing it again.
Could you allow me to look into that and report back at the next meeting? Because retrospective isn't technically against the law; it's bad practice, but people can apply retrospectively. So if you let me look into the legality side of that, because that'll help how any sort of correspondence is phrased, and then I'll report back at the next planning meeting.
Yep, surely. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Okay, then. Item 7, allotment rents, to consider rent allotment charges for 22-23 financial year. Now, we did not increase the 21-22 financial year charges, and they were waived for Kelgate tenants due to flooding issues. So the question is tonight, if we look at all the rents collectively, that's Spark Mill, Kelgate, Minster Moorgate, Kitchen Lane, and Queensgate. We look at them. Do we want to increase them, or are we going to remain with them as they are?
If you like, Mr. Charles, just give you the details of what they currently are. And of course, as I said last year, it was agreed to not charge the Lairgate site due to the flooding, which is abated. There's still been issues, and Yorkshire Water looking into it, which has been nowhere near as bad as the reason that we removed the fee last year in this current year. Across all sites, all plots, regardless of size, are a £50 deposit. When they leave site, they will get that back if the plot's in a decent state. If not, we're going to be putting some policies together that dictate what percentage we'd retain, etc. But all plots are a £50 deposit. For a plot that is 125 square yards, it's £20. For 126 to 250 square yards, it's £25. And for over 251 square yards, it's £40. So that's across the board on all the sites. They're the 3 levels of annual rents, which, as the chair says, haven't been put up, but in the past, councillors have considered the wider circumstances and the difficulties people have been facing regarding putting them up. and decided to stay the same. So councillors could choose to revise them. One thing that would be useful tonight is just to is for councillors to approve whatever the charges are that we will charge Laregate this year. So we have an official minute of that, having waived it for this year, but next year they will be charged.
So can I make a suggestion then? I mean, we're not out of this situation globally, nationally, that we're all in the pandemic, and there will be a lot of hardship from this over the coming months. I would like to recommend that we keep the charges as they are for this next financial year. I do think that's a reasonable rent to be asking, and that obviously the officers know, and I'm looking at Libby this time, that if somebody is struggling, then we are helpful towards them, and Libby can use her discretion in consultation with the acting town clerk. So I do think that that what our charging policy is, we should leave as is, not increase. And also in that proposal, I would like to move that we look at well, we charge the Laregate as well in that proposal. But obviously, again, if we do have any serious flooding, we look at it in the future. But I think everything appears to be okay on that side.
Yes, just for information, Mr. Chair, a lot of it thanks to Libby's dogged work with letters and the rents.
Yeah.
This year, all rents were paid. We didn't
Yeah.
have any issue at all with
Right.
any issues regarding people paying.
Okay, good. Anne and then David.
Yeah, can I back that, because I think things are going to be hard for a lot of people this year, and if we just, if people have a struggle to pay even the 25, which isn't much, then we look at it sympathetically.
Yes, yeah. I think we're maintaining that policy, Anne.
Yeah.
I know that the officers don't discuss it with myself, but I do know there has been a few people that has been struggling, and Libby's very good with them, and she does act sensibly, and has a talk with acting town clerk Matt, and they come to an agreement. So it's David Horsley.
Yes, it just struck me that there was a significant difference in rents. Are there any people whose plots are very close to the boundary sizes? You know, I mean, if you say over 50 yards and you're charged an extra £25, I can't remember the true figures, but are there people who are very close to that 50 yards?
I think the categories are so wide. So I would say the lowest one, there's only £5 difference between 25 square yards and 26 to 250 square yards. It goes up by a further 15 to 40 if it's 251 square yards or more. So that it shouldn't really affect many, because where there are those that are not quite, the majority of them all fit well within either side of the parameters.
Right, just for information, David, what we've done over the years with the help, well, not we councillors, but what the officers have done, they've harmonised it all, and so we're in a better situation now than we ever have been. In answer to your question, David, and like Matt's just explained to you.
Yes, the differences are relatively large in the vast majority of cases.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you. So in agreement with that, 8, grit bin request. Grit bin on Springfield Drive. See attached.
I'll just share the screen, Mr. Chair, so I can show you the location as well. Nope, no, that's potential. There we are. Right. So Springfield goes between Sixton and Burden Road. The residents requested one as elderly residents to the Eastfield area.
Yeah.
Require the resident does go out and get the grit from elsewhere. We've looked at the budget. There's room in the budget to purchase it. If council's agreed, I would be suggesting this sort of area. So it's so it's accessible from Eastfield, from Simmons, and halfway down the Springfield itself. So if councillors want to progress that, I can liaise with East Riding on that matter.
Yeah. Are we in agreement?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we're in agreement with that, Matt. 9, office accommodation. To consider investigating potential alternative accommodation for the town council. Now, I asked Matt to put this on the agenda because Matt and myself have in November attended a joint meeting with various community users, organisations, should I say, to do with Beverley Library Gardens, and it was at the Treasure House, and Alan Menzies was present. And he did say, well, he didn't, but one of his senior officers did say that they are going to refurbish and alter Beverley Library somewhat this year. In fact, they'll soon be starting on it. I haven't got a nod from Matt, but I think yes.
Well, I think what COVID will dictate the speed at which they can progress anything.
Yeah. So what they're hoping to do is incorporate several offices which are in and around Beverley, in the library, and one area is the Beverley Register Office. That's going to go into the library, as is the Customer Care Centre. That's going to go into the library, and also you've got a tourist information centre in the library. They're going to get that better located in the library, and as a result of that, the library gardens is going to be a complete transformation taking place within the library gardens. They've realised that everybody agrees that they are in a terrible condition of those gardens, and that's why, if you remember, we've been included as a town council, as is the Chamber of the Civic Society, the Sir Optimists, and other individual groups around the town. So we've had it said in the past that as accommodation comes available in Beverley, albeit it's only been verbal, we could have consideration as is everybody else. So I said to Matt, I think it's about time we got something in writing to Alan Menzies or to Caroline Lacey and say, look, we would be interested in either of these properties should they become available. Put it in writing to them and see where it goes. Hopefully we'll get an answer back. Then Matt's got a paper trail of that. There's a reason for this. It's been verbally in the past, but there's been nothing in writing, and I think it's time now that we're starting from, for Matt and Libby and Carol's sake, that we start getting paper trails for this, because it's apparent that a lot of things have been said over this situation, but nothing's in writing, and we need that in writing. So I would just like to say that I would move from the floor that we ask Matt to write to Alan Menzies, or indeed Caroline Lacey, whoever he determines are the best people to write to, to get just this our interest to them. I saw Anne indicating. Did you indicate Anne? No, it was Matt.
Yeah, I've anticipating this. I've drafted a letter, so I'll just quickly read it in case, so to make sure it's in the right sort of tone council may consider. It's to Alan Menzies. I'm writing in the hope of formalising conversations between East Riding of Yorkshire Council and Beverley Town Council regarding our desire to purchase office space within the town.
Yeah.
There have been informal conversations between yourself and town council officers and councillors in the past, but it would seem pragmatic to put this on a more official footing. As you are aware, the Town Council has rented offices on Well Lane for a number of years and has also allocated significant reserves for the eventual purchase of property. Beverley Town Council is aware that East Riding of Yorkshire Council continues to review the properties it owns and that there are plans for amenities in the Customer Service Centre and Walkgate House to be incorporated within the Treasure House or County Hall. It is the hope of town councillors that should a suitable town centre property become surplus to East Riding requirements, it could serve as a new and self-owned headquarters for Beverley Town Council. As such, the Town Council would welcome opening an official line of dialogue with either yourself or an appropriate officer to discuss the matter further.
Yeah.
Are we in agreement with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Ian?
Can I just throw a spanner in the works?
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has seen the proposals for the redevelopment of the rugby club. Now, it's not a conversation I've had with Brian, the chairman, but they're looking to, it's called BP2, Beaver Park 2, knocking down the existing premise, moving it further, anyway, expanding. And I wondered whether there was any, if anybody else was so minded of the possibility of us building a purpose-built BTC office within the grounds of Beverley Rugby Club. Mm-hmm. Because it would be a much cheaper option than buying something at market value to build something, an addendum to the existing plans. The press release is currently on the Hull Daily Mail website. It just struck me as a real sensible idea because there's vast amounts of car parking, etc., and there is to be an expanded function room should we want to have public meetings, etc. It just crossed my mind.
I noticed you use the word public meetings, not parties. David Tucker.
I must admit, Ian, I'd struggle to support that in the sense that I believe the town council really requires a town centre property. I think something that people can just pop into, whether they're walking in, coming on a bus or whatever. I think as a sort of a function room or something might be useful, but I think for town council offices, we need something bang in the middle of town, personally.
Why does it have to be in the middle of town? I live on Swinemo Lane. It's not convenient for me at all.
I think people come shopping in the middle of town. I think people get off buses in the middle of town. People park up in town. People wander around and look at lights and things like that. I just think it's a sort of, I think if it's out as far as that, it'll become a bit of a dead duck, really.
Well, anyhow, we can, Anne.
I agree with Ian. I think it's a bit too far out of the centre. I agree we've got parking problems and all that stuff, but I still think we need somewhere near the centre.
You agree with David, Anne, not Ian?
Sorry, I agree
David
with
David.
Yeah, I mean, there is to be parking for 250 cars at the Rugby Club, but hey.
David Ardsley.
Yeah, can you just add an odd sentence to say that we might also be interested in the current registry officers as well as that we might be interested in them just as much as in the customer services officers.
That's what he's going to do, David.
Good.
That's what he's going to do.
He does reference both Walkergate House and the customer service centre.
Yeah, and whilst we're on with this, I'd like a line adding, Matt, not to that, but for the minute, that the chair and an acting town clerk also look for other suitable properties that may be available.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. and report back to a future meeting. Yeah. I can't hear you, Matt.
And as and when possible potential
Yes,
properties
yeah.
arise.
Yeah. Is that agreed? Thank you for that. Right. Item 10 then, to consider the exclusion of the public from the meeting. Public and press from the meeting. On the grounds that confidential information in relation to business contracts and legal matters shall be disclosed. Public Bodies Act, Public Bodies Admissions of Meetings Act 1960. And the motion is that the public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that confidential information in relation to business contracts and legal matters shall be disclosed. Yeah, are we in agreement?
Do we have a proposal in a second? Do we have a proposal in a second for that, please, Mr. Chair?
I'm proposing that. Second, Ian.